close your eyes for a second and picture this, okay? A land of golden sands just stretching out forever and dotted with hundreds of pyramids.
Hundreds.
Yeah, more than even Egypt can brag about.
Wow.
That's the kingdom of Kush, and that's where we're diving in today.
That's awesome.
This civilization thrived for over 1,000 years, and they left behind a legacy that, honestly, often gets overshadowed by their more famous neighbors.
Right.
But if you, like me, are fascinated by those ancient cultures that don't always get the spotlight,
Yeah.
then buckle up because this deep dive is for you.
It's amazing to think about, isn't it? A kingdom that not only interacted with, but like at times even ruled ancient Egypt.
Yeah?
So we're going to be exploring a period from roughly 790 BC to the 4th century AD.
Wow.
A period that was marked by dynamic shifts in power,
Right.
cultural exchange, and some truly remarkable people.
And we are in good hands for this journey.
Oh, yeah.
Guiding us through the sands of time is Dr. Loretta Kilroe,
Okay.
curator for Sudan and Nubia at the British Museum. She's curated a fantastic exhibition
Oh, wow.
called Ancient Sudan, Enduring Heritage, which I hear is packed with incredible artifacts.
From what I've gathered, it's a treasure trove of insights into the Kushite world.
But before we get lost in a pyramid frenzy, let's set the stage.
Okay.
The region that became the Kingdom of Kush had a deep and complex relationship with Egypt long before the Kushites rose to prominence.
Yeah, think of it as a dance between two powerful civilizations, sometimes in sync, sometimes clashing.
Right.
There were wars, of course, but also like vibrant trade and a constant exchange of culture, and this all played out along the Nile River.
The Nile was truly the lifeblood of both of these civilizations. It makes you wonder how they navigated that shared dependence.
Well, the Egyptians, ever keen on control, established fortresses in Sudan during their Middle Kingdom period.
Okay.
So around 2500 to 1500 BC.
Right.
Imagine these like imposing structures strategically placed along the river to control trade and access to this like vital waterway.
Right.
It speaks volumes about how important this region was to them.
It does sound like they were already sensing a potential rival in the making.
And they weren't wrong, because a few centuries later, a dynasty originating in Sudan would rise to conquer Egypt itself, becoming the 25th dynasty.
Wow.
It's a fascinating twist of fate, isn't it?
It completely flips the script on what we usually think of when we hear about ancient Egypt.
What's even more fascinating is that the Kushites didn't see this as a hostile takeover.
Oh.
They viewed themselves as the rightful rulers of Egypt, drawing on a shared heritage and religious connections that stretched back centuries.
So it wasn't just about military power, it was about legitimacy in their eyes.
Exactly. They weren't just imposing their rule, they were reclaiming what they believed was rightfully theirs.
Right.
And this sense of continuity is reflected in how they embraced Egyptian religious practices while also developing their own unique traditions.
Okay.
They worshipped familiar deities like Amun, Isis, and Hathor, but also venerated indigenous gods like Apidamak, a lion-headed god associated with war and fertility.
It sounds like a true blending of cultures, a religious tapestry woven from both Egyptian threads and their own unique beliefs.
Precisely. And it's not just the grand temples and royal inscriptions that tell this story.
Yeah.
Even everyday people left behind small votive offerings to goddesses like Isis and Hathor, seeking help with healing, fertility, and protection.
Wow.
Imagine a farmer worried about his crops leaving a small clay figurine at a roadside shrine, praying for a bountiful harvest.
These little glimpses into the daily lives of ordinary Kushites are so powerful. They remind us that history is made up of individuals,
Yeah,
each with their own hopes and fears.
absolutely. And speaking of individual voices, the Kushites developed their own written language, Meroitic.
I have to admit, ancient languages can be a bit daunting. It's like trying to decipher a code.
Well, think of it this way. Meroitic used an alphabet derived from Egyptian hieroglyphs,
Right.
but it represented a completely different language.
Oh,
It's like using the Latin alphabet to write, say, Japanese.
that's a good analogy. So what secrets are hidden within these Meroitic texts?
Translations are ongoing, but we're starting to uncover fascinating themes.
Okay.
There's a clear focus on water, which is understandable given the importance of the Nile.
Right.
There's also an emphasis on horses,
Horses.
which the Kushites were renowned for breeding. Imagine these powerful animals, symbols of Kushite strength and prosperity, galloping across the plains. And there are even references to magic.
Horses. I wouldn't have pictured that as a key element of their culture.
They were highly sought after throughout the ancient world. Even the mighty Assyrians traded with Kush for these prized steeds.
Speaking of uncovering hidden gems, you mentioned earlier that even something as seemingly mundane as pottery can offer a window into everyday Kushite life.
Yeah, pottery might not sound glamorous, but trust me, it's a treasure trove of information. The types of pottery, the decorations, the way they were made, all these details can tell us so much about their diet,
Okay.
cultural practices, and even how different social classes viewed the world.
I'm intrigued. What kinds of pottery are we talking about?
Well, there are two main types. First, we have the wheel-made pottery, likely produced in state-controlled workshops.
Okay.
This pottery often features animal and plant motifs, along with Egyptian symbols like the ankh and the say. Imagine a beautifully crafted bowl, thin and delicate,
Right.
adorned with symbols of power and prosperity. This would have been a status symbol, a sign of belonging to the Kushite elite.
And what about the other type, the handmade pottery?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The handmade pottery reveals a more indigenous worldview through its unique symbolism. Imagine yourself holding one of these pots, feeling the rough texture of the clay, tracing the lines of the mysterious symbols. It's like holding a piece of a culture we're still trying to understand.
It's like a puzzle waiting to be solved.
And one of the most striking examples of this handmade pottery is what Dr. Kilrow calls the crocodile pot.
The crocodile pot.
Yeah.
That definitely piques my curiosity. What's so special about it?
Picture this, a bulbous jar with a narrow neck and a painted register depicting two crocodiles.
Oh, wow.
But here's the catch, they have no teeth.
No teeth. That seems like an odd choice for a crocodile.
It's almost deliberate, isn't it? Like they were trying to neutralize the threat while still acknowledging the power of these creatures. And here's another intriguing detail. The decoration is only on the top of the jar, suggesting it was meant to be displayed in a stand, perhaps even partially buried, so that only the crocodiles were visible.
So it was meant to be seen to make a statement.
Precisely. It's not just a functional object. It's a statement of wealth status, perhaps even a connection to the spiritual world. Imagine this pot on display in someone's home.
Right?
A conversation starter, a symbol of their place in Kushite society.
It really highlights how even everyday objects can tell us so much about a culture. But before we delve further into Kushite society, I want to turn our attention to a powerful force they encountered, the Roman Empire.
Ah, yes, the Romans. Their arrival on the scene would mark a turning point in Kushite history.
So how did these two powerful civilizations, worlds apart in many ways, come face to face?
Well, after conquering Egypt in the 1st century BC, Rome set its sights on Kush. They were hungry for expansion, eager to add the wealth and resources of this kingdom to their growing empire. But what they didn't realize was that they were about to encounter a force to be reckoned with.
I have a feeling this is where things get really interesting. Give us the details.
At the heart of this clash is a Kushite queen known as Amenarinas, who held the title of Kandek, meaning queen. She's often referred to as the one-eyed queen, though whether she actually had one eye is debated.
A one-eyed queen facing down the might of Rome. This is a story I need to hear more about.
Well, the Romans, led by a prefect named Petronius, initially had some success sacking several Kushite cities. But Amenarinas and her forces fought back fiercely, pushing the Romans back and even launching raids into Roman-controlled Egypt.
She sounds like she was an incredible leader.
She absolutely was, and despite some early Roman victories, including the sacking of Napata, the former Kushite capital, the Kushites ultimately negotiated a peace treaty without having to pay tribute to Rome.
That's a remarkable feat. To stand up to the Roman Empire and emerge with their independence intact is a testament to their strength and resilience.
And here's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn. During excavations at Meroe, the Kushite capital archaeologists unearth a remarkable artifact, a bronze head larger than life-size that is believed to depict the Roman Emperor Augustus.
The Roman Emperor himself. What was his head doing in the Kushite capital?
That's the million-dollar question. And here's what makes it even more intriguing. The head had been deliberately decapitated. Remember how Amenarinas and her forces had been raiding Roman Egypt, toppling statues, and according to some accounts, even decapitating them?
You're not suggesting.
It's believed that Amenarinas brought this head back to Meroe as a trophy, a symbol of her victory over Rome. And get this, it was found buried beneath the steps of a Kushite temple.
So she literally walked over the head of her enemy every time she entered that temple.
Talk about a power move. It sends chills down my spine just thinking about it.
This episode is full of surprises. I can't wait to see what else we uncover about this fascinating civilization.
We've only just scratched the surface. The Kingdom of Kush is a treasure trove of captivating stories, blending indigenous traditions with the influences of its powerful neighbors. And after a short break, we'll delve into the later years of this remarkable kingdom, including its eventual decline and the enduring legacy it left behind.
If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Kingdom of Kush, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive to keep those aha moments coming. We'll be back after a short break. to continue our exploration.
Welcome back to our exploration of the Kingdom of Kush. We left off with that Kushite queen in Monteranus staring down the might of Rome, securing a peace that would last for centuries.
Yeah, it's hard to get that image of the decapitated head of Emperor Augustus out of my mind.
Hmm.
Really speaks to the Kushites' fierce determination to protect their independence.
It does, doesn't it? But what's fascinating is that despite this initial hostility, Kush and Rome eventually developed a more amicable relationship.
So did the Romans begin to influence Kushite culture?
Absolutely. Roman styles and trends became quite fashionable, especially among the Kushite elite.
Okay.
Dr. Kilrow mentions this fascinating structure in Meroe,
Okay.
initially dubbed the bathhouse,
Wow.
which appears to have been some kind of water sanctuary. It features statues of people lounging in togas, a statue of the Greek god Pan playing his pipes, and decorations of grapes, all very Roman in style.
It's interesting how these cultural influences seem to transcend time and place.
It's a reminder that these ancient civilizations weren't living in isolation.
Right.
There was constant interaction and exchange, shaping and reshaping their cultures. But while the Kushites adopted certain aspects of Roman culture, they never abandoned their own unique identity.
That makes sense. They
Yeah.
still had their own language, religious practices, and of course, those incredible pyramids.
Exactly. But as with all civilizations, the kingdom of Kush eventually faced challenges that led to its decline.
So what led to the downfall of this kingdom that had defied both the Egyptians and the Romans?
It wasn't a single catastrophic event, but rather a confluence of factors. By the 4th century, AD, Kush was facing pressure from various raiding groups.
Okay.
These groups were likely driven by a combination of political ambitions and perhaps environmental changes.
Right.
Remember, we're talking about a region heavily dependent on the Nile, so any shifts in climate or resources could have had a significant impact.
Were there any significant rivals in the region who may have contributed to Kush's decline?
There's evidence suggesting that the Aksumite kingdom located in modern-day Ethiopia may have played a role. The Axumites were a powerful force in the region,
Right.
and some scholars believe they may have even conquered Meroe at some point.
So the kingdom of Kush found itself facing pressure from both within and outside its borders.
That's right. And while they had proven their resilience time and time again, these combined pressures ultimately proved to be too much. By around 350 AD, the once mighty kingdom began to fragment into smaller states.
It's a reminder that even the most powerful civilizations are not immune to the forces of history.
It is a sobering thought, but it's important to remember that the legacy of Kush didn't simply vanish. Its influence can still be seen in the cultures and traditions of modern Sudan and beyond.
That's an important point. We often focus on the fall of civilizations,
Mm.
but their impact can endure long after their political power has faded.
Absolutely. And that's why exhibitions like Dr. Kilrow's are so important. They help us to see these ancient cultures not as relics of the past, but as vibrant societies that continue to shape our world in countless ways.
Speaking of her exhibition, you mentioned it's touring the UK in 2025. What an incredible opportunity to see some of these artifacts firsthand.
If you have the chance, I highly recommend checking it out. You'll be able to see the crocodile pot we talked about earlier, as well as that incredible figurehead of Isis that once adorned a ceremonial boat used for religious processions. Imagine standing before these objects, feeling the weight of history in your hands.
It's one thing to hear about these objects, but to actually see them in person must be an entirely different experience.
It truly brings history to life. It's a tangible connection to these people who lived so long ago.
And for those of us who can't make it to the UK in 2025,
The British Museum's website is a fantastic resource, packed with information on the Kingdom of Kush and their collection of Sudanese artifacts. There are also documentaries, books, and articles that delve into this fascinating civilization.
so why should we care about the Kingdom of Kush today? What's the relevance of this civilization that existed centuries ago on a continent many of us may never visit?
It challenges our understanding of history. We tend to focus on the narratives of Europe and the Mediterranean, but the Kingdom of Kush reminds us that there were powerful, sophisticated civilizations thriving in other parts of the world, shaping their destinies and leaving legacies that continue to resonate.
It's like adding a new chapter to the human story, expanding our understanding of the past.
Exactly. And by exploring these less familiar narratives, we gain a richer and more nuanced understanding, not only of history, but of ourselves.
It's an invitation to broaden our perspectives and appreciate the interconnectedness of human experience across time and continents.
Precisely. And on that note, let's wrap up our deep dive into the Kingdom of Kush. What stands out to you as we reflect on this incredible civilization?
You know, for me, it's the resilience of the Kushites. It really sticks with me. To not only survive, but thrive for over 1,000 years facing down empires and forging their own path, is truly remarkable.
I agree. It speaks to their strength, their adaptability, and their deep connection to their culture and their land.
We've uncovered so much in this deep dive, from those breathtaking pyramids, more numerous than even in Egypt,
Right.
to their complex relationship with their powerful neighbors.
Yeah,
The Kushites have certainly challenged my assumptions about ancient Africa.
for sure.
And don't forget those intriguing glimpses into their daily life.
Right.
That crocodile pot, with its toothless crocodiles, still has me pondering its deeper meaning.
It's so interesting.
It's a reminder that even the smallest objects can hold profound insights into a civilization's beliefs and values.
Absolutely.
And then there's Amon-Arenas, the one-eyed queen, who dared to defy the Roman Empire and emerged victorious.
Wow.
What a powerful symbol of Kushite resistance and strength.
She's a figure who truly embodies the Kushite spirit.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind of discovery full of surprises and aha moments.
Yeah.
It's left me wanting to learn even more about this fascinating kingdom.
There's certainly no shortage of resources to delve into.
Right.
Dr. Kilro's exhibition is a fantastic starting point, and the British Museum's website is a treasure trove of information. And who knows, maybe one day you'll even be inspired to visit Sudan and see these wonders for yourself.
Now that's an adventure I wouldn't mind embarking on. To stand before those pyramids, to feel the sands of time beneath my feet, to connect with this ancient civilization that has left such an indelible mark on history.
It's a journey I highly recommend. The Kingdom of Kush may have faded from the political map centuries ago, but its legacy lives on. In the archaeological remains that continue to whisper their secrets, in the museums that showcase their artistry and ingenuity, and in the stories that continue to be told.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Kingdom of Kush, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. History is not just about dates and dynasties. It's about the people who lived, loved, struggled, and triumphed. It's about exploring those hidden narratives, challenging our assumptions, and expanding our understanding of the human story.
Beautifully said. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of history. You never know what treasures you might uncover.
And if you're enjoying these journeys into the past, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive so you don't miss our next exploration. Until then, keep those aha moments coming.